Let me tell you a story that might change everything you believe about failure. There was a man who lost his job at 25, failed in business at 31, lost his wife at 35, had a nervous breakdown at 36, lost an election at 45, lost another election at 49, and lost a Senate race at 51. By every measure, he was a complete failure. But at 52, Abraham Lincoln became President of the United States. You see, my friend, what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck isn't their circumstances. It's how they think about failure itself. Most people treat failure like poison. They avoid it, fear it, run from it. But here's what I've learned after studying successful people for decades. Failure isn't your enemy. Your relationship with failure is. And if you can transform that relationship, you can transform your entire life. Because the moment you stop running from failure and start learning from it, everything changes. You stop being a victim and start being a victor. Today I want to share with you the most powerful mindset shift you'll ever learn. It's not just about positive thinking or motivation. It's about rewiring your brain to see opportunity where others see obstacles, to find strength where others find weakness, and to discover the hidden gifts that failure offers to those brave enough to unwrap them. The truth is, every successful person you admire has one thing in common. They've failed more times than you've even tried. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Oprah was fired from her first job as a television reporter. But here's what they understood that most people don't. Failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is the raw material of success. Think about this for a moment. When a baby learns to walk, do they give up after falling down once? Of course not. They fall, they get up, they fall again, they get up again. They don't see falling as failure. They see it as feedback. They see it as information. They see it as the natural process of learning something new. But somewhere along the way, we lose this natural wisdom. We start believing that failure means we're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to succeed. But what if I told you that this belief is not only wrong, it's backward? What if failure isn't a sign that you should quit, but a sign that you're exactly where you need to be? What if the very thing you're running from is actually the doorway to everything you've been running toward? Let me share something that might surprise you. In Japanese culture, there's a practice called kintsugi, which means golden repair. When a piece of pottery breaks, instead of throwing it away or trying to hide the cracks, they repair it with gold. The philosophy behind it is that the piece becomes more beautiful and valuable because of its brokenness, not in spite of it. The cracks become part of its story, part of its strength, part of its beauty. This is exactly how successful people think about failure. They don't try to hide their mistakes or pretend they never happened. They highlight them with gold. They understand that their failures aren't flaws in their character. They're proof of their courage. They're evidence that they were brave enough to try something difficult, bold enough to risk disappointment, and strong enough to keep going when things didn't work out as planned. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think that once they've failed, they need to bounce back quickly, dust themselves off, and pretend it didn't hurt. That's not resilience. That's denial. True resilience isn't about bouncing back from failure. It's about bouncing forward from failure. It's about using the energy of disappointment to propel you towards something better than what you originally planned. When you fail at something, your brain is actually doing something incredible. It's gathering data. It's learning what doesn't work so it can figure out what does work. But here's the problem. Most people interrupt this process. They get so caught up in the emotional pain of failure that they miss the educational value of failure. They focus on how they feel instead of what they can learn. Let me give you a different way to think about this. Every failure is actually two experiences. There's the event itself, which is neutral, and there's your interpretation of the event, which determines everything. The event is what happened. Your interpretation is what it means. And here's the key. You have complete control over the meaning you give to any experience in your life. When something doesn't go according to plan, you have a choice. You can interpret it as evidence that you're not capable of success, or you can interpret it as valuable feedback that's bringing you closer to success. You can see it as a dead end, or you can see it as a detour that's taking you to a destination that's even better than the one you originally planned. I want you to understand something profound. The most successful people in the world aren't those who never fail. They're those who fail the fastest, learn the deepest, and adjust the quickest. They've trained themselves to extract maximum value from every setback. They've developed what I call failure intelligence, which is the ability to transform disappointment into direction, setbacks into setups, and problems into possibilities. But developing failure intelligence requires you to change your entire relationship with discomfort. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They choose the familiar pain of staying stuck over the unfamiliar pain of growing. They choose the certainty of mediocrity over the uncertainty of excellence. But here's what they don't understand. Discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is your teacher. It's showing you exactly where you need to grow. Think about physical exercise. When you lift weights, your muscles experience stress and even tiny tears. But it's precisely this stress that makes them stronger. The discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is working. The same principle applies to mental and emotional growth. The challenges that make you uncomfortable are the exact challenges that will make you unstoppable. Now, I want to address something that might be going through your mind right now. You might be thinking, this sounds good in theory, but you don't understand my situation. My failure wasn't just a learning experience. It cost me my marriage, my savings, my reputation. Some failures are just too big to recover from. I hear you, and I want you to know that I don't minimize the real pain and real consequences that come with significant setbacks. But I also want you to consider this possibility. What if the magnitude of your failure is directly proportional to the magnitude of the comeback that's available to you? What if the depth of your valley is preparing you for the height of your mountain? History is full of people who experienced devastating failures and used them as launching pads for extraordinary comebacks. Colonel Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times before someone agreed to use his chicken recipe. He was 65 years old and living on Social Security when he started KFC. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. His first animation company went bankrupt. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school 3 times. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare when she wrote the first Harry Potter book, which was rejected by 12 publishers. What separated these people from those who gave up wasn't that they experienced less failure. They experienced more failure. But they had something that most people lack. They had a relationship with failure that empowered them instead of defeating them. They understood that failure wasn't their story. It was just a chapter in their story. And they were determined to write a better ending. This is what I want you to understand. You are not your failures. Your failures are not your identity. They're your education. They're your training. They're your preparation for the success that's coming. But you have to be willing to stay in school. You have to be willing to complete the course. You have to be willing to graduate from the University of Failure with a PhD in resilience. Here's a practical exercise I want you to try. Think about the biggest failure or disappointment you've experienced in the past year. Now, instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, what did this prepare me for? Instead of asking, what did I lose? Ask, what did I learn? Instead of asking, how can I avoid this in the future? Ask, how can I use this in the future? This shift in questioning changes everything. It transforms you from a victim of your circumstances into a student of your circumstances. It moves you from a position of powerlessness to a position of possibility. It turns your breakdown into a breakthrough, your mess into a message, your test into a testimony. But here's what you need to understand. This transformation doesn't happen automatically. It requires a conscious decision on your part. You have to choose to see failure differently. You have to choose to respond differently. You have to choose to think differently. And this choice isn't something you make once. It's something you make every day, sometimes every hour, sometimes every moment. The people who master failure understand something that most people miss. Resilience is not a personality trait you're born with. It's a skill you develop through practice. And like any skill, the more you practice it, the better you become at it. Every time you choose to learn instead of just hurt, every time you choose to grow instead of just grieve, every time you choose to move forward instead of just look backward, you're strengthening your resilience muscle. Now, Let me share with you the most important insight about failure that I've learned in all my years of studying success. Are you ready? Here it is. Your greatest failure will become your greatest strength, but only if you're willing to mine it for its gold. Every significant failure contains within it the seeds of an equivalent or greater success. But those seeds won't germinate on their own. You have to plant them. You have to water them. You have to tend them until they grow into something beautiful. I've seen this principle at work in countless lives. The entrepreneur who lost everything in their first business used those lessons to build an empire in their second. The person who went through a painful divorce learned what real love looks like and found their soulmate. The individual who battled addiction became a counselor who saves lives. The student who failed medical school became a teacher who inspires thousands. Your failure isn't your finale. It's your foundation. It's not your ending. It's your beginning. It's not your weakness. It's your strength in waiting. But you have to be willing to do the work to uncover the gold that's hidden in the wreckage of your disappointment. This means you have to stop running from your failures and start running toward the lessons they contain. You have to stop being ashamed of your mistakes and start being grateful for the wisdom they've given you. You have to stop seeing your setbacks as evidence of your inadequacy and start seeing them as proof of your courage. Here's what I want you to remember. Every master was once a disaster. Every expert was once a beginner. Every success story was once just a story of successive failures that led to ultimate triumph. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't the absence of failure. It's the presence of persistence in the face of failure. So today, I challenge you to make a decision. Decide that your failures will not define you. They will refine you. Decide that your setbacks will not defeat you. They will complete you. Decide that your disappointments will not destroy you. They will deploy you into your destiny. Because on the other side of every failure you face is the success you seek. But you have to be willing to walk through the valley to reach the mountaintop. Your failures are not your enemy. They're your teacher. They're not your curse. They're your gift. They're not your end. They're your beginning. The question isn't whether you'll fail again. The question is, what will you do with the failures when they come? Will you let them stop you? Or will you let them strengthen you? The choice is yours, and it's the most important choice you'll ever make.